106.5? It's time now for Front Page Jacksonville, a show that delves into the issues that affect you. We believe in transparency and providing only the facts. And now, here's Octavius Davis.
Happy April. Happy April to you. We back in the studio here on Front Page Jacksonville on another Sunday morning. Glad to be back with you. Last week, I had some traveling to do with work, and so now back live in full effect in the studio with you on this Sunday morning. And, of course, joined by my sister from another mister. Wanda P. is in the building with me this morning as well. Being our producer, but she gonna also double. She gonna moonlight as my co-host today. How you feeling this morning, Wanda?
Oh, I'm here. Thanks the Lord.
Hey, we here. How was the week for you?
It was good. I'm still trying to hear you. Anyway,
well, I wasn't talking, so I mean, you couldn't.
Very funny. And you know I meant in these
in the headphones. I got you.
Yeah, you got me. The week was good. My best friend of decades has been in town all week.
Ingrid?
Sherry.
Sherry, okay.
From California.
Got it.
And I've been, I was out of town as well last weekend in my hometown in Alabama. So she came back with me from there. So she's been here all week. First time in Jacksonville.
Nice. Now, you've been in Jacksonville for about
26 years.
Close to 30 years, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm,
and that's her first time over to these parts. How's she enjoying herself so far?
She is enjoying herself. She was supposed to be gone yesterday. But due to the weather, what looked like was going to be inclement weather in the Midwest, like around, Arkansas and then Houston, which she was going to be landing in Houston to see a cousin for one day and then going home to California. The weather, there's been like floods, tornadoes and stuff like that. But it has gotten better.
Good.
So, but out of an abundance of caution, of course, she changed her plans and whatnot, but all seems to be well. And it looks like we're gonna be getting some weather on tomorrow. So she's leaving,
I haven't even checked the weather for tomorrow. So please don't ruin it for me. This past week has been immaculate outside. Wanda, see, we got rain coming through.
That's what Corey Simmer had told us on Friday.
Simmer.
I was giving her a tour of the building, radio side and TV side, and of course, every time I come through at a certain time, Corey's always there preparing in the afternoon. So gave her the full rundown of things. So Well,
we'll be prepared going into this week. If the rain must come, then it must come.
It's forecast for tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
So after 3.
I can deal with that.
FYI.
Yeah, I can definitely deal with that. I have to say, I am very, very grateful with my day job. So much like you, I was traveling last week. I was down in South Florida. Working with a foundation called the Selfless Love Foundation. Now, let me share with you about the Selfless Love Foundation very quickly. This is an organization that focuses specifically on helping young adults who have aged out of foster care to gain the life skills that they need to transition successfully into adulthood. Now, there are several different ways by which they do this. And one of those ways, they host a annual competition. It's called the Dream Tank. And the Dream Tank competition is where these young people are able to compete, to have an opportunity to pitch their dream, so to speak, to a panel of judges. And the young person whose dream is elected by the judges, they get a $5,000 check to help go towards making that thing a reality.
Nice.
Oh,
nice.
It's absolutely wonderful. So this year, ironically, there were 5 young ladies who were the finalists. And so as I looked around
Where the young men at?
Well, usually there are young men who are a part of it, but I just thought it was so apropos considering March was National Women's Month.
History Month,
right, and and that was not done intentionally because the program itself it's a 9-month long program that they enroll into. So it just so happened that the dice rolled that way for these young ladies, and so. Each of these young ladies, they did a phenomenal job. There's an actual speech that they have to get up and give to pretty much sell their dream to not only the audience, but also the panel of judges who are there. The young lady who won, so the Friday evening is the Dream Tank competition. Then Saturday, the foundation does a gala, which is their fundraising event for the year, and where they also then announce the winner. So the young lady who won it, this young lady, her name is Antonia, graduated from Florida A&M University, holds 2 master's degrees from Florida State University.
Oh, wow.
Is a native of Fort Pierce, Florida.
Okay, the Fierce Pierce.
And her dream, she wants to create an organization whereby she can help men and women who were formerly incarcerated have an opportunity to integrate successfully back into society and lowering the recidivism rate.
Very nice.
Phenomenal young lady, phenomenal approach by which she is passionate about this particular work because 2 of her siblings, she's one of 12 siblings.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And 2 of her siblings, 2 of her brothers have been, one was formerly incarcerated, one is currently incarcerated. And so that's what inspired her, despite the fact, mind you, had been in the foster care system since I believe she was 11, maybe 12 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
And so despite all of those different challenges,
she's really achieved.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's where I was last weekend, and I love it. Now, I'm going to tell you something, Wanda. Wanda and I, we've known each other for years. I think I may have been 19 when you and I first met, right?
Yeah.
And so at that time where you and I had met, I had already fallen in love with radio.
Right.
It was already in my bones by that point. And I think I had only been in radio for maybe a year. But I was majoring in communications at Edward Waters at that time. And so I never thought it would be possible for me to find something that would rival my love for radio.
Really?
Until I began working in child welfare.
Really?
I kid you not.
Very good.
I kid you not. And I think for me, it's less about the industry and it's more about the impact.
Yeah. That's what it is. That's the reward, if you will.
Sure.
Is seeing people's lives change for the better. And I'm sure in all of this, some of the circumstances aren't always, or outcomes that is, aren't always great. But hopefully in what you do, I'm assuming that you see more of the good and the great than on the other side. I do, because of the capacity that I work. Now, for individuals who are case managers that are on the front line, the ones and the child protective investigators who are having to go into those homes and whatnot, they see a completely different side than I do. Sure. I'm more on the community engagement side, the side whereby we create memorable experiences for those families and those kids who are in the system in an effort to, we call it normalcy, in an effort to help them feel a sense of normalcy as they go through their day-to-day life. Right. So yeah, you're right. I am able to see a lot more of the sunshine and rainbows on my end because I'm a part of, the leprechaun crew who creates those rainbows and so forth for those young people. But it is exceptionally rewarding in ways that I did not think was possible.
So that's why last week you had yourself a pre-recorded show here on Front Page Jacksonville, but we are live and in full effect here in the studio this morning. 833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on Front Page Jacksonville. And one other thing before we get into the debauchery that's been happening both locally and nationally.
Oh, nationally. Okay.
Oh, my goodness. So one other rainbow, our cast.
And I got to give a shout out for what I did where I was last night.
Well, go ahead and give your shout out before I give this Care Bear stare.
I forgot this is your show. I forgot.
Oh, come on. See,
no,
you got jokes.
I know. You know, I'm going on about how many hours did I tell you about? I'm going on a nap.
Yeah.
But shout out to the Florida Gospel Music Awards, or the Florida Gospel Music Academy had what they call the Florida Gospel Music Honors last night. It was in Tampa. And among the people from across the state of Florida that got honored, the late, great Dontavious Boatwright got a posthumous honor. Also, the late, great Troy Sneed got a posthumous honor. And Brother Freddie Rhodes got an honor, and he and his wife were there.
Nice.
Honored for his over 50 years in media.
Wow.
With, doing radio, currently still on radio.
Correct. And he did television for a very long time.
Of his TV career as well with Channel 4. The work he did. So he got honored as well. And I'm trying to make sure I didn't forget anybody else. But Duval was in the building.
And can we got time. Can we take a moment to talk about each of those gentlemen that you just mentioned? So let's start off first with Freddie Rhodes. Let's start with Freddie Rhodes because Freddie Rhodes.
Teddy Street. I don't think we ever told him that we had a character that you created, by the way, called Teddy
We have
Street,
not.
which is fashioned
from Freddie Rhodes. So if you listen to gospel radio here in the city of Jacksonville, we are referring to the oldest locally owned gospel station in the city of Jacksonville. I won't throw out the call letters.
The only black-owned and woman-owned radio station in this region.
Yes, say it.
The only one, which is where I got my start.
Rhodes, right. Freddie Rhodes opened the door for both Wanda and I for on-air work for me. I started at a talk radio station as a producer, but Freddie opened the door for me as an on-air personality. And that's where Itchy and I, Ren and Stimpy, Beavis and Butthead, however you want to refer to us, because the both of us,
all those things.
We were some against the grain rogue announcers on a traditional gospel station. And we didn't care. We had a blast. But Freddie Rhodes, my first day on air. He said, "All right, baby boy, meet me at the station on this particular day." All right, cool. So I meet him at the station on this particular morning. Now, his shift, if I'm not mistaken, I think he did 6 to 9 on Saturday mornings because I was 9 to 12 on Saturday mornings. So his shift was right before mine. His on-air shift was right before mine.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
He did during the week in the afternoon. But right. Okay, anyway, go ahead, proceed.
Yeah, and so I go to the station. I'm like, all right, cool. It's my first day on air. I didn't think a whole lot of it because I thought he was going to hang back with me. No. I was in the studio preparing for my show, and, back then we had CDs that we had to put inside the CD player.
Yeah.
Our commercials were played on a cart machine. Huh? All this fancy schmancy stuff they got right here in the Hot 106.5 studios. We had none of that.
None of that.
We had pots, potentiometers, knobs that we had to turn on the board. Listeners, you don't know nothing about this. Just follow me on the story. So I have stacks and stacks of CDs on each side of me preparing for my show. It's maybe 5 minutes before it's time for me to go on air. And from amongst the hallway, I hear, "All right, baby boy, I'm gone." Excuse you, sir? You're going where?
Oh, that's so
Freddie Rhodes left me alone, a 19-year-old inexperienced scrub in the studio by myself. My very first day on air. Wanda, I was petrified.
Terrified, yeah.
I was sweating profusely in that studio, looking at the clock and looking at the mic. Looking at the clock and looking at the mic like, what am I going to say?
Right.
Ain't nobody told me nothing. I don't know what you're supposed to say when you open up the mic.
Right, exactly.
And then my nerves were so bad, I had cotton mouth. I struggled through that first day on air. I knew I was doing so horribly bad. Cheryl, I can't remember Cheryl's last name.
Missionary Harris.
There we go.
Yes.
She was listening to the show, and she must have, the Lord heard my cry. She called me during one of the commercial breaks, and she said, "Baby, I need you to calm down." Let me say a word of prayer with you, because I was struggling.
Really? I don't think I ever knew that part of the story. Bless her heart. Love that, Cheryl.
When I started as a radio announcer, I felt like every Saturday was worse than the day before. And then I wanted to quit. I went home and I told my mom one day, I was like, "I'm not going back. I'm not doing this no more. I suck." But she encouraged me to keep going. But thank you, Freddie. Thank you for that trial by fire on air. Apparently, we're still on air, so he saw something in us that we didn't see in ourselves. Here we are almost 30 years later.
Right.
Or or Elroy, maybe you just got poor judgment with who you let on the air at your station here in Jacksonville. I don't know.
Oh, my goodness. That is so funny. That is so funny. Well, obviously, Freddie figured you can do it. But me, I had the opposite experience. Dorian is the one that trained me.
Yeah.
And when I tell you she was thorough.
Yeah.
To the point where on what do you call these little boards that you have? There was a board with the paper, and she wrote out how the actual board looks, the board in the studio, and then went over what each of the knobs was for, and she was very thorough.
Wow. I would have loved that.
So, yeah, I'm sure you would have. But I, too, the very first time I went on air, was real nervous.
Yeah.
And for me, it happened 26 years ago, the first weekend in March. Was my first time on air. And I, too, was nervous, and she was right there. And so she was like, "Okay, go ahead," And then, of course, I froze. I did, like you did. But she was like, "Okay, you're going to have to kind of have an idea of what you're going to say before this mic gets cut on." But she was there and really walked me through it. Really prepared. Yeah, really prepared. So I always have to shout her out because she did such a good job. I mean, I was able to take notes.
Yeah.
So, the month of February was the preparation month. And then the first Saturday in March.
You had a whole month.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it wasn't like I was there every day, but just on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Because that was her shift. She did Saturdays and Sundays, I think. Or was I there on Sundays? I think it was it was Saturdays.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Saturdays. But so I came on those days and observed and learned and all that. So she was great.
And then the next person we'll talk about Dontavius Boatwright. Now, you were much closer to Dontavius than I was. He and our paths would cross periodically. But talk to us about Dontavius. And so, why do you believe, because it's been 13 years since his passing?
Exactly. Yeah, about that.
Why do you believe?
I can't believe you remember that.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah.
Why do you believe?
Because it was on your birthday that he passed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In 2012. Yeah.
And so, why do you believe that with all this time that's passed, Dontavius still gets recognition for what he was able to do in the gospel music industry?
Yeah, because he had an impact. So for those who don't know, who, might not have been here in Jacksonville at the time, BET had a show on called Sunday Best. And that Dontavius was in, I can't remember if it's season 1 or season 2, forgive me. He was season 2. He became a top 5 finalist in season 2 of that national gospel music competition, a groundbreaking competition. And just a phenomenal talent. A phenomenal talent, being a top 5 finalist in that second season really garnered him a lot of recognition for his gift. And once he came off of that, here locally, Elisha Parrish and his company called Periscope decided to got with myself and Dwight Follins and asked us, hey, would you all like to, let's start this gospel division of my company and the two of you run it. We know we but because of the contacts that Dwight had, and all of that, and what I did, all of that, we, did release his first single. We released his first single. I was kind of in charge of marketing and promoting it, and we got it out there, and we had just begun work on the second single. We were about to go in the studio to record that second single, because it was going to be a part of a EP or a CD. But that second single, when he passed, of a kind of rare kind of heart condition, unknown heart condition that he had. So, throughout the church world, here in Jacksonville, people knew him and stuff like that. And just because of that talent, he was also a minister. So,
correct.
Using both of those gifts, I think that's why he'll definitely be remembered. So, yeah.
The two main things that stick out of my mind about Dontavius, he was a large fellow.
Yeah.
He, Dontavius was probably 6'3", 6'4". I mean, he was a big guy.
About 6'3".
And his voice.
Yeah.
The brother had some pipes on, and not just his singing voice, but his speaking voice. Very articulate. Just had a presence about himself.
Yeah, he did. Kurt Franklin. He was the first person Kurt Franklin called the Black Poverty. I guess you didn't know that, but he called him that on the show.
Yeah, and I can see why. I could definitely see why. Very distinguished gentleman. Yeah. That was the late great Dontavius Boatwright, and then of course Troy Sneed.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something. That when Troy passed in 2020,
2019 or 20,
2020,
it's 2020. It's been 5 years
due to COVID. I wasn't ready. It was very unexpected. Troy, I've known Troy for years.
Yeah, we both have.
And always cracking jokes about something. Troy Sneed was hilarious.
He really was.
And just very genuine. And I'll tell you, to this day, the song that I did not think I would find myself listening to repeatedly of his.
Yeah.
There was one I fell in love with back in 2012. My Heart Says Yes.
Oh, My Heart Says Yes.
Oh,
Beautiful
I was
song.
like, oh,
Beautiful
there's
song.
no other song.
There was
of
no
his.
song like that on gospel radio.
Yes.
And nobody has still not done anything like what he did.
At all. I was like, oh, this song is amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't recall what happened. This must have been 22. And, you know, I'm at the gym working out, and one of the things that I often do after I work out is I like to meditate.
Yeah.
And listen to gospel music. One of Troy's songs came on. I did not know it was Troy. And so I'm listening to this song, and I'm like, oh, man, this is, you know, getting me where I need to be.
Yeah.
Move Forward.
Oh gosh, that is my song.
Oh.
It is on my YouTube playlist.
Yes. And so I went to skip back so I could listen to the song again. And
Was
so
that your first time
that was
ever
my
hearing that
first
song? Oh,
time
gosh,
hearing Move Forward.
Yeah, beautiful song.
And when I picked up my phone to hit the skip back and I realized it was Troy, it impacted me, you know, that much more. Because I remember I interviewed him back, this is probably 2013, at a different station that I was working at. And we were talking about, you know, his upcoming project. And I asked him about, hey, man, you know, My Heart Says Yes, that song's the jam. And he's like, oh, well, dude, if you like that one, you're going to love this other song. He was talking about Move Forward.
Yeah.
But even then, back then, I didn't listen to it back then. 22 was my first time hearing it. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, now he is another one. When I think about Troy, I think about the crazy fool he was, and I mean that in
a good way.
endearing way,
Yeah.
because he is so crazy. His music definitely. There is, and I said this to somebody, gospel music has a void.
Yeah.
Because of him. And here's what's phenomenal. You know, he produced with the Georgia Mass Choir and all of that. He's done some great work with that. But his own body of work is really, really great and ahead of its time. Yeah. It really, really is. But here's what's funny. A true fact about Troy, he loved him some quartet.
Really?
Yep. He loved him some quartet music. Yep.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, it's like as I think about it, that doesn't surprise me.
So he
had an old spirit about himself.
He did crazy. So when we were doing interview, he was going to be joining us when I was still at CGL. He was like, "Oh, Wanda, play this song for me." Of course, he joking, but he's serious at the same time. It was a quartet song. I'm just looking at him like, "What?"
Yeah,
you know? But that. Oh my goodness. So his daughter was there last night and accepted the honor. She's carrying on his legacy. But here's the thing. Remember that song, My Heart Says Yes? Remember the project, My Heart Says Yes? So his son, Trey, if I got the song right, I might have the song title wrong, but they re-released that song last year with Trey.
Really? Oh, I got to hear that.
Trey Sneed, I will pull that up for you. I'll find that. But
wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So they're continuing that legacy.
And I was happy to see that his daughter was, going to continue on with his legacy, keeping his name out there. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. Yep. But three great gentlemen from right here in Jacksonville.
Yep.
Right here in Jacksonville. So, and if you don't know, because I recognize we're on an R&B station, and Wanda and I just did a blast from the gospel past with some of the stuff. If you don't know what a quartet is, Lee Williams and the Spiritual QCs.
Lord have mercy.
The Mighty Clouds of Joy. Like groups like that, right? That is what would be considered a quartet. That old school Glory of Gospel compilation CD that you used to see infomercials about back in the 80s. Yeah, that's quartet music. Quartets. Look, a lot more is on the way. You're listening to Front Page Jacksonville. 833-758-1065 is the number to call. We'll see you on the other side.
Now back to the show that informs you and discusses the issues. Front Page Jacksonville on Hot 106.5.
So, Wanda P., during the last session, you and I were talking about three of the gentlemen locally who were honored over the weekend.
Yeah.
But there's one quick correction you wanted to make regarding Troy Sneed.
Regarding Troy Sneed and Trey Sneed, that song, I think the song title is All Is Well.
Yeah.
So they re-released it with Trey on the song. So, yeah, really, really beautiful. So, yep. And you hear that song on Morning Inspiration and on Sunday Morning Inspiration. So it is rotation, and those that listen have heard it. So, yep.
And I'm going to pull it up when I get in the car at the end of the show.
All right.
So I'm looking forward to hearing that. Just to hear what the next generation of Sneeds are doing.
Yeah.
And then
Trey is a young man now, so.
And also before the break, I mentioned that there was something else that I had an opportunity to participate in this past week. Shout out to the Jacksonville Urban League. This past Friday, I had an opportunity to participate in their Thrive 2025 panel, where students from Ed White, Terry Parker, and Ribault High School were in attendance, and we discussed a varying degree of topics from mental health to education, as well as knowing and understanding your rights. So some of the panelists that I was joined by was State Attorney Octavius Holliday, my namesake. It's so funny, he and I having the exact same first name, exact same spelling and everything. And so oftentimes when I'm out in the community, they mistake me for him and him for me. Not because we look alike, okay? Octavius and I don't look alike, but because of the name.
Yep.
So there was himself, Dr. Justin Clark, who's actually my primary care physician, so it was great seeing him there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There was another assistant state attorney. I can't think of Ronnie's last name. There was an OBGYN, Sergeant Henley with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Caitlin, I can't think of Caitlin's last name, but she's a part of an organization that's educating the community about the dangers of vaping and hookah and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And then Nigeria McKellen, she's a mental health professional here in the Jacksonville area as well. So we had an opportunity to discuss a lot of different topics. Impressive group of young people that were in attendance. It all went down on Friday at the Ritz Theater and Museum as we had an opportunity to impart into the next generation. We're talking about the next generation of Sneeds. We had a chance to impart into the next generation of young people right here in the Jacksonville community.
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, Wanda, let's dive into some of this debauchery. Let's go national first. Let's go national first, and then we'll bring it on home. Now, I'll be honest with you. There's been so much stuff going on. I can't keep up. I can't keep up with all the stuff that's going on. But I do know that there were thousands of coordinated protests on yesterday across the country.
Across the world.
Across the world.
There were protests in other countries.
Wow.
I heard.
Protesting your president, Donald Trump. The country's president, Donald Trump.
And the co-president, Elon Musk.
And right? Protesting tariffs, protesting Doge.
Yeah.
This, have we hit the 100-day mark yet? I know it comes this month.
No.
I think the 100-day marker comes during the month of April. I just don't know what that exact date is. But we are less than 100 days into his second term.
Yeah, he took office January 20th.
Yeah.
21st. Yeah.
And it has literally been a dumpster fire.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's been a dumpster fire ever since. So just taking a quick look at some of the impact that's taken place since he's been in office. There is now a 25% tariff on imported vehicles. And remember, despite the bag of goods that were being sold during his campaign, stating that he was going to implement tariffs on imports, people thought he was talking about taxing those other countries. No. Tariff is a nice, fancy political word to say they taxing you and they taxing me, the American people. And those who knew no better were saying, yeah, that's right, tariffs. It's like, Joker, you do know he's talking about tariffing you. 25% imported, a 25% tariff on imported cars. And something that I learned recently, he's gone tariff crazy because he's even placed a tariff
on top of tariffs.
On top of tariffs, but even on an island, a 10% tariff on an island that is only inhabited by penguins. Ain't nothing coming in from yes.
What you talking
Ain't nothing coming from over there. Otis, what is you doing? And so China said, all right, cool. That's what we doing? Mm-hmm. All right, well, we're going to put a 35% tariff on goods coming in from the U.S.
It is a game of tit for tat.
Yeah, we can do that. Canada already want all the smoke.
Yes.
Canada already wants all the smoke.
Can you blame them?
No, not at all.
Canada is one of our allies.
Supposed to be, but this administration is treating Canada as though they're
an enemy.
An enemy.
Yeah, right.
Don't understand it. Now, I did come across, and let me state this on the front end. I do not know, when you talk about economics and how this impacts that, I don't know. I can't break none of that down for you.
Yeah.
However, I came across a couple of videos over the weekend where some people were saying, well, this is a good thing because let me tell you how the stock market dropping this many number of points is now going to allow more money to actually come into Wall Street because people are going to want to buy now that the stocks are down. And that's going to allow the government to be able to now pay off some of these $1 trillion of debt that we have to these other countries, which in turn is going to cause the inflation to come down to zero. Bruh, I don't know nothing about that. All I know is that eggs cost $9, bruh.
Right.
That's all I know.
Right.
All I know is there's a 25% tariff on imported vehicles.
Right.
All that
Which
other
means that it's going to cost more.
It's going to cost more money. Yeah. All that other stuff you talking, Playboy, I don't know nothing about that.
Right.
Doge. What you call him? The what you call him?
The co-president.
The co-president. Co-president Musk. Right? And all this foolishness that they have going on with Doge.
Yeah.
And I even saw the other day where the federal government is trying to walk back some of those layoffs because of the impact. It's like, duh.
Right.
And here's what's the scary part to me, Wanda. We won't see the full effect of a lot of these choices that are being made until a year, 2, 3 years down the line.
Right.
And see, but then when that happens, they're going to try to blame it on somebody else. You know, the spin game that they play.
Of course.
They'll try to blame it on some other reason as to why X, Y, Z is happening.
Right.
To try to deflect from the choices that they're making now that's going to impact our later as a country and economy.
Right. Absolutely. And all the confusion, it's like it's by design.
Yeah.
With all the, what do you call them, executive orders and all of that stuff that he has signed with lightning speed.
Yes.
To, dismantle some stuff, roll some stuff back. But all of this is an effort to distract us. You made the statement that there's so much going on, you can't keep up. Well, that's seems to be by design.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that by far. There's so much chaos that he has ensued since coming into office.
Yep.
What
he hasn't ensued it by himself.
No, he has not.
A whole
He has not.
Yeah, he's got a whole, branch of government that is allowing it. And I'm talking about Congress and the Senate. So
here's what I'm standing by waiting to see. And I know that the wheels are already in motion of him trying to pull this off, just because of different things that he's mentioned about trying to have a third term.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, he wants to be a dictator. Sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But didn't we know that during and after his first term?
During his first term, he talked about having, doing away with how our voting system is and allowing him to have a third term.
Yes.
He said that.
He said that.
Yep.
And so, I see a lot of people saying things online such as, well, this is what you voted for.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Individuals
we tried to tell you
that are being deported. Many
in air, some even in air.
Yeah.
But they're not doing anything about it.
Of course not.
Yep.
Of course not.
Yep.
So I have a lot of concerns in terms of things that are happening federally. And what bothers me the most, and I've said it on the show before, what bothers me the most is when we see, I'll call it errant policy on a federal scale, but because of partisanship, wanting to hold the line, you then see state and local municipalities begin parroting those same type policies locally.
Okay.
Locally, right here locally.
Oh, gosh.
Councilman Ron Salem wanting to establish a local Doge team here in Jacksonville. Why?
Right, exactly.
Why?
You really don't want to know why I think it is partly.
Come on, Wanda, the microphone on. Let's go. Why? Why do you believe? Again, we're not reporters. This is a, what did I call the show?
Op-ed.
This is an op-ed show. So your opinion matters here on Front Page Jacksonville, as does yours, 833-758-1065, if you'd like to join in on the conversation. Why do you believe Councilman Ron Salem wants to establish a local Department of Government Efficiency?
I just wonder if he's trying to position himself at a potential maybe run for mayor. I don't know if folks have thought about that, but also he doesn't seem to care for our current mayor. I've heard some of the things he said and the way he said it, very disrespectful.
Sure.
And I think, and I know that's being petty, that's petty politics, but I do feel like, and hopefully I'm wrong, but, and I might be, but I do feel like he just is trying to stick it to Deegan wherever and whenever he can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think that's a pretty fair take, considering some of the things that we've seen in her less than 1 year in office.
Yeah, right.
Things that have come from city council, because we haven't even gotten into this whole latest immigration bill that's hit Jacksonville locally, which we'll get to that in the next hour, because our guest coming up in the next hour is a gentleman that I think would be a good person to chime in on the conversation as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a pause for the call so that we can get him in the studio. We're going to get some bills paid. And on the other side of the break, our guest in the studio will be Ron Armstrong. You're listening to Front Page Jacksonville. We'll be back in a moment.
Front Page Jacksonville resumes on High 106.5.
If you're just tuning in before the break, we were talking about some of the things that are happening on a federal level that's now trickled down to a local level. So Wanda P. and I were having that discussion in the studio. It started out with the protests around the world. I thought it was just around the nation until Wanda shared that these were protests from around the world that were coordinated yesterday against Donald Trump's second term, but also many of the things that this administration has implemented, from the various executive orders to tariffs to DOGE. But then we spoke about how some of those things are now trickling into local government right here in Jacksonville. Now, granted, there were hundreds of protesters at the Duval County Courthouse yesterday in agreement with the international protests against what Trump has been doing. But there's something else that's happened locally. Just a few days ago, I think it may have been on Friday, Thursday, perhaps Friday, where our mayor, Donna Deegan, has refused to sign an immigration bill into law that city council has approved. Yeah. And one of her many reasons for choosing to not sign is that she said there's already federal laws that cover this. Right. This is unnecessary. Right. Furthermore, I don't believe it to be legal. I believe there will be lawsuits that will hit the city of Jacksonville because of this bill. Yeah. But then we spoke about the previous councilman as it relates to wanting to have our own local Department of Governmental Efficiency, Ron Salem. But there's a different councilman who's, on the opposite side of Mayor Deegan when it comes to immigration bill, one of several, Kevin Carrico. He believes that she should have signed this bill. Now, I get it. I understand to a degree. I understand wanting to ensure local residents and on a national scale, American citizens, that our jobs are protected with, against individuals who enter our country illegally. I understand that. Sure. I believe there should definitely be processes and procedures in place.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm not for the circus act.
Hello.
And this feels like a circus act.
Yeah. It's like they're trying to appease, I won't say Washington because Donald Trump and Washington is two different things. But it's like they're trying to appease and go along with, so I don't know. It's,
You listen to Front Page Jacksonville on Hot 106.5 FM, the soul of Duval on WHJX Ponte Vedra Beach. It's the top of the hour, and we have a brother here in the studio whom I've been excited to get here on the studio. And, because I know this guy. I'm going to rewind the clock. This must have been January, possibly February of 2022 when I had an opportunity to meet him. At the time, I was back in the education sector, overseeing a few charter schools that were in the process of being developed and opened here in Jacksonville, Idea Public Schools. I've shared this on air before. And so one of the members on my team, Jessica, she's like, you got to meet Pastor Ron. I'm like, well, who is Pastor Ron? Well, you got to meet him. And so we go to this building right on University Boulevard North. And I go in there, and there are people everywhere. I think you all were perhaps having I think it was like a fundraiser or something, as you all were preparing to get your coffee, your mobile coffee unit up and going, if I remember correctly. And I just remember seeing, teenagers everywhere, families everywhere. And I'm like, all right, cool. And so then he and I had an opportunity to chop it up. And we hit it off really well. And see, he don't think I know this. He was trying to vet me. He was trying to see how authentic I am, right? If I was a genuine guy or not. But we had several conversations. We hit it off really well, and were able to essentially help one another out. with his organization, what they do, which is a faith-based organization right here in Jacksonville, imparting into the young people right in the East Arlington area. But his work is not just limited to East Arlington. And I think before I dive into that, I want to introduce you, front page listening audience, to Ron Armstrong. Ron, welcome to the show, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Applause.
So let's start there, Ron. That first meeting of you and I there at Sponsored by Grace. Talk to us a little bit about your organization and what I walked in on with the work that you and your team were doing there at Sponsored by Grace.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. It's just been a long journey. We came to Jacksonville. I'm not originally from Jacksonville. Came to Jacksonville on a drug and alcohol addiction. And the organization really was birthed out of an international mission trip. Took an international mission trip to Cado, Brazil, voodoo capital of Brazil, and followed an organization called Compassion International. And what that organization consists of is that you can sponsor a local child out of poverty for $38 a month. You know, it feeds a child, it clothes the child, it has a safe place for a child. And 92% of people who sponsor from a domestic level will never see their child internationally because it just costs too much money.
Sure.
So coming to Jacksonville, after having a radical encounter with the Lord led me to start this organization for local kids in local poverty. And what you came in on the back end was we were already in motion for 5 years. But what you were seeing is the launching of our Arlington area with our coffee company and the nonprofit. So you were coming in at a perfect time.
Yeah. And no, go ahead, Wanda.
I was just going to say, okay, your organization is the one that started that coffee company in Arlington. What is it called?
Grounds of Grace.
Grounds of Grace. Okay. And he didn't bring us any coffee.
He didn't ask.
Oh, and you didn't ask.
You saw how the buck was passed. You saw.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw how that buck was passed.
That was a good.
I didn't think to ask.
Don't try to give me one. You ready to boss.
I'll own it.
Oh gosh,
So-
that's awesome. Yeah, awesome work y'all do.
Now, when did Sponsored by Grace launch, and what type of inroads have you been able to make with the organization since launching?
Yeah, so we launched in 2018, had zero experience about launching a nonprofit. And the Lord sent me directly to Cleveland Arms. Got a phone call one day at a family needed some beds, that there were some children sleeping on the floor. And, you know, not being from Jacksonville, first thing I asked myself was like, well, who sleeps on the floor in Jacksonville? And so when I saw the need, it was the light bulb went off. I mean, just inhumane living conditions on how people were being treated in our city. Walking in an apartment, black mold all over the place, you know, rodents running around, kids had no clothes, kids sleeping on the floor. And so I left that with just, I have to do something. And this was 23 minutes away from my front doorstep. And so that was the launching pad in 2018, 19, 20, just showed up consistently volunteering. It was the hardest thing I ever did in my life, you know, getting cussed out, getting spit on, doors slammed in your face, had death threats on my social media because the community was hurt. They seen so many people coming in and trying to help, but it was really that kind of local mission trip mentality. Take a photo, leave. We're not trying to build a relationship.
Right.
We're getting what we want and we're leaving. And so in 2020, a businessman, we had an event there, and it was, you know, as the Sheriff TK Waters said, it was history in the making, because we seen drug dealers being baptized, prostitutes that were giving their life to Jesus, families that were coming over to this event. And we ended up baptizing 33 people on that day. And this business guy was standing in the back, and he took me to lunch the next week, and he said, hey man, he said, you got to leave your job. You got to do this full time. And wrote me a check for $15,000, and I left my 6-figure salary and hit the road running.
Yeah. And let's dive into that for a moment, man, because our listening audience doesn't know this. For those who watch via YouTube, youtube.com/@the$1,000,000voice, that's DA $1 million voice, they may have an indication as they watch this show, but you're not black.
I'm like, where is he going? Okay.
Right? Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. And so when you speak about going to Cleveland Arms,
Yeah.
right? Cleveland Arms in the heart of the 32209 zip code in the Jacksonville community. And you described some of the conditions that you saw the Cleveland Arms residents living in. But what you also described, and I don't want to skip past this.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were being cussed out, spit upon.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
So
I wanted to go there.
granted, you're out there doing the Lord's work. Like, God, I didn't choose me. God, these your people. You called me, right? But then to see how you were being received, why did you continue going back?
Yeah, the only answer I have is Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the hardest. Like I said, I've seen a lot of hard things in life, been around a lot of hard things, but by far, when I drove in with that U-Haul that day, it was one of the most darkest feelings I've ever felt in my life, because it was out of my norm. I don't know what I was doing there, but the Lord said, hey, you need to take these beds over there. And I get it. Like, I get it now, being almost 8 years in the community. It's like, you don't trust people. You know, when you're hurt that much for so long, not just by individuals, but from the city, by the government, by family. Like, I get it now, but like when you're first going into something like that, man, and no wonder no one wants to stay these days. It's hard.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'm sure residents were like, okay, what are your real intentions?
Absolutely.
Right.
I've
What
played
do you
this game before.
Yeah, what do you want from us? What are you trying to take from us?
Absolutely.
Right? And so that lack of trust, I'm sure, was palpable, but at the same time justifiable, because even as you mentioned, you know, that community has been used to people coming in, taking pictures, kissing babies, and going on about their way. But I want to share what I saw April of 2022. Because I believe that's when you all were doing, I remember it being around Easter time, right? There in Cleveland Arms, myself and a few of my team, when I was with the charter school, we were out there with Sponsored by Grace for a large event that you all had going on. And I got to tell you, man, the level of trust that I saw the Cleveland Arms community have for yourself and the Sponsored by Grace team, I'm sure was a night and day difference from what you experienced when you first began going out there. How did that change come about? And the trust that I saw was like, they know you, you know them, they're hugging you, you're catching up, y'all having a good time. They trusted you. So what do you believe led to the community eventually, that same community that was cussing you out, what led to them saying, hey man, that's my man right there, you better not mess with Ron?
Yeah, it's one word: consistency. I think in, you know, even today's world, we love to get the attention of things that we do, but we don't love to be consistent. And in consistency, it was, man, you're showing up. Like, you're here when the hard things are happening. My brother just got murdered on the front doorstep, man. You showed up for that. You know, I'll never forget a young kid that I'm still involved in his life. He's like, Mr. Ron, it took me 6 months to shake your hand. He just didn't trust me. And I get it. But when you show up when things are hard, or, you know, a family needs groceries, or, you know, there's a challenge in the community, and you're the first one there, and you look around and your mom's not there, your brother's not there, but there's this white dude just standing there, not trying to engage, but he's there. Like, that just speaks a lot of volume to the community. And when that consistently happens for years, it's a game changer. So I'd just say consistency has been just the key to victory for what we do.
So with all the consistency that I've seen firsthand with you and your team there in the 32209 area code, because not just Cleveland Arms, but you're connected with our sister over at Center of Hope, Jada Hunter, and the amazing work that's going on in the Durkeeville area as well. So a couple of weeks ago, I'm on social media and I see Ron say, yep, I'm running for mayor. What?
Say that again.
So, and we may have to, you know, unpack this bit by bit. So even if it's on the other side of the break, I'm fine with that. But you share with us how you first came to Jacksonville. Then from that, you start this faith-based nonprofit organization in East Arlington. to doing essentially missions work in the 32209 area code. Now you talking about wanting a shot at the big chair. The big chair. Yeah, you want to spin around in the big chair for the city. What has led you to want to run for mayor of Duval County?
Yeah, I have to go back. It's a God thing.
Yeah.
Coming to Jacksonville, having absolutely nothing, couldn't even afford a hotel room. But to fast forward now, I never had a family. Been able to build a family here. My beautiful wife, my 3 beautiful children. Never thought I'd be running 2 companies, multi-million-dollar organizations that have been established here in Jacksonville. It's not just because of the dollar amount, but the mission work that has happened in the city. And listen, I've seen everything from the street corners to, the multi-million-dollar seats. Currently ride with JSO multiple times a month on the homicide unit. I see death all the time in our city. And just looking at the initiatives that we've constantly been fighting for as a city, yes, I think some of them are very important, but a lot of things we are not talking about. Like right now, we have a suicide crisis. We have an overdose crisis. Over 40% of homes are being led by single moms. Where are the dads? Where are the men supposed to be leading the homes? Like just things you're not going to hear on the political road.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was 7 months ago when I was mowing my grass and I just asked the Lord, I said, am I supposed to be doing something else? Because everything's running pretty smoothly here. And it was just clear as day, the word mayor. And I was like, oh no, there's no.
It's like, no. Not that thing. Talk to me about something different.
And then he just gave me the initiatives, and I'm a big challenger when it comes to my faith now because I've seen what he's done in my life. But I just asked him, I said, okay, I'm going to put you to the test. Send me 6-7 people to confirm this. And then next thing you know, 2 weeks go by, people were flying in from New York for development opportunities with us. And a lady from New York, she sat right across the table and she's like, you're going to be the mayor one day. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Like, oh no.
And then I'd walk into like random places, a bank, a restaurant, and people were just like, hey man, you ever thought about running for mayor? And I was like, all right, Lord, here we go. So that's kind of where it started.
Any apprehension, considering you don't have a political background?
Zero.
He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just here. Any apprehension, any concerns about the road ahead?
No, because honestly, it's the people. And we can get up in the dog and pony shows of politics and, what needs to be done, what hasn't been done. But so far, I've sat with 3 past mayors just in the last month, and it's the same agenda. It's not the people. And I think what I've been exposed to in 15 years of Jacksonville is like, I love people and I want to see change. And I've been in the worst places of this city. I've seen the worst things. And people are still not getting what they deserve.
So let's talk about that platform. Mental health, strengthening the family, and community revitalization. Why those 3 areas?
Yeah, I just think in Jacksonville, we have neglected the mental health. We have tons of silo organizations that I think are doing great things. But for an example, just this last week, everybody put out this number. I think it was from United Way, where you can call if you're in a suicide crisis. So I just did a test run. I said, okay, I'm going to call that, and I'm going to see what kind of help we actually have as a city. So I was on hold for 9 minutes. And I think that's way too long when it comes to resources for people that are in, life or death situations. And probably about 3 weeks ago, we had a suicide call that went out because as a homicide unit, we get these calls. And a gentleman went down to a local boat ramp. He tied his foot around something at the boat ramp. He was wearing a suicide prevention T-shirt. He wrote 10 letters to Jacksonville and said, I've tried. Wow. I'm tired. This is it. And he took his life.
Wow.
And right now, we have an average, literally anywhere from 12 to 30 deaths a month in Jacksonville from suicide. But we're not talking about it.
We're not, because you don't hear that on the news.
No.
Never.
Wow.
So then the other one is, so the suicide crisis is high. The overdose crisis is high.
Right.
Just had an incident where a gentleman left his home. He was a father of 3, went to a construction site, just an average worker one day. And on his lunch break, he decided to go to a gas station. There was a drug dealer there. Obviously, he had an addiction problem, but that was the last time he would ever see his family because he took whatever it was and went back to the job site, and we found him dead in a porta-john. And so right now, the numbers, depending on holidays, could be as high as 15 to 40 people a month that are dying from overdoses in Jacksonville. To your point,
we're not hearing about that either.
And so I think the resources and the education, people, one, don't know where to go. We have so many things that are scattered out. And like I said, there are people doing amazing work in Jacksonville.
Absolutely.
Right.
But we're losing people.
Yeah.
And so we got to figure out why. I believe that's an issue that has to be talked about. Now, again, political world, you're not going to hear it.
You know, it's interesting because, as I mentioned to you, the trip to Tampa.
Yes.
Yesterday evening for that Florida Gospel Music Honors Program, I was in the car with again my best friend from California, Dwight Follins, Elder Dwight Follins, because he serves on the board of this organization just like I do, and my daughter was in the car.
Kirby,
she never comes with me or us when we have these programs, but she decided to because Sherry, my best friend, is her godmother. We were having a conversation about addiction, and she was asking, were there any programs here in Jacksonville where she could do a training on, like, for Narcan, or where people could go and do a training. And I told her, from what I understood, there were trainings in maybe St. Johns County as well as Clay County, but I have not heard of any here in Duval County. And so to your point about just addiction and the fentanyl crisis and all of that, I just don't see where things are being done enough here in Duval County.
I agree.
And particularly in our neighborhood.
Sure.
Because again, Clay County, St. Johns County, which, you know, there's not as many of us black people of color there. But it seems like these resources to help people with these addictions are in those areas, but not in areas here in Duval County. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think it's the same issue why, you know, Clay or St. Johns County would say we don't have a homelessness crisis.
Yeah.
And it's all Duval's problem. And I think when you start getting that mentality, you're just saying, oh, we're the king of the hill over here, and you can't even tread into our territory, which is a bigger problem.
Yeah.
There's no unity in that. We've established our own kingdom over this way, so kind of don't come over this way, keep it in your own backyard.
Right.
But what they don't know is literally just 2 weeks ago that they had 4 officers in St. Johns County, firefighters, commit suicide within 2 weeks. Why?
Wow.
Because of a mental health crisis.
Wow.
So we can't say we don't have a problem in our backyard when you do.
Right. Yeah, good point.
You're listening to Front Page Jacksonville. Our guest in the studio is Ron Armstrong. He has announced, at least unofficially so far, that he's running for mayor in 2027 of Duval County, where we're going to continue the conversation with him. You're welcome to join the conversation as well. 833-758-1065 is the number to call. Stick around. This is Front Page Jacksonville. More is on the way.
The heartbeat of the community. Front Page Jacksonville returns on Hot 106.5.
If you're just tuning in, our guest in the studio is Ron Armstrong, Pastor Ron Armstrong, community activist Ron Armstrong, coffee maker Ron Armstrong.
Still going to be a little salty about not getting any coffee today.
I'll tell you why it never crossed my mind. I'm not a coffee drinker.
There you go.
And at the time when we scheduled to get Ron in on the show, I didn't realize that you were going to be in producing the show today.
Right. That's true.
Otherwise,
that's true. I'll give you a pass.
See, I had enough time to think about what my rebuttal was going to be.
Right. So, and while you pointed that out, let me point out in this little cup right here, it's my coconut milk, which I use as creamer for my coffee. All it needs is the coffee.
All it needs is the coffee.
Only other milk.
Yeah. So
yes, I need the coffee.
So you came with milk,
Yeah.
But why you ain't come with coffee?
Oh, I'm going to make it here.
Oh, got you.
A Keurig in my office.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Got it. Okay. Everybody ain't able.
Station.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
Clearly not
But it
about
would
the
have
people.
been nice to get some grounds of faith.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, but I'm going to make my way over there. I've been saying that since y'all opened. So, but I'm going to make my way over there just to show a little support and love.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And drink some good old coffee.
On the other side of the break, we were speaking with Ron about his 3 initiatives, the 3 platforms that he's standing on with his mayoral run in 2027. We just spoke about the mental health crisis in the city of Jacksonville, and we dove into that from a few different aspects. Let's talk about the next pillar, family strengthening. Why is family strengthening so important for your mayoral run?
Yeah, I think family's everything for me. Never had a family really growing up. Like I said, my mom was an alcoholic, lived in a cardboard box in South Florida for many years, was sex trafficked by a big gang here in Florida. My dad, he went on the run for over 40-something years on a drug addiction. Really never saw him in my life. Just put him in rehab a couple weeks ago down in South Florida. So I've been in it. I never really had a family. But coming to Jacksonville, everything changed when I found my family. So found my wife here, met on the mission field. Like I said, have 3 beautiful children. And Jacksonville, I would say, is my family. And I say that, and now seeing my mom here, she went into rehab, found the Lord on the back porch of a rehab facility. She became the director of nursing here in Jacksonville. She has the same story. She found Jacksonville as a home.
Wow.
And so, strengthening the family unit, one, the work that we have been doing for 7 years in our community, one area, again, you're not going to hear on the political road, but I think we have to talk about it. Every week in our city of Jacksonville, we have kids that are being removed from homes.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know why. I've seen it personally. I've been a part of those stories, but right now it's almost 43% of kids being removed every single week. Could be 1, could be 3, could be 5. And we don't know what to do, and we don't know the why. And so, personally seeing this, I think I know the why is, the home is not structured. The father is gone. The living conditions are not what they need to be. We don't have the right resources in the home. It's just, there's a lot of different variables. But I'll always go back to the stories that I've experienced. And when I got a call one day where I needed to take in kids to my own home from our community, obviously, being as a white man, taking 5 kids from the black community, that was a real big obstacle.
Sure.
And I didn't know how to navigate it. I didn't know what to do. The first call I made was DCF. And right when we went into DCF, they didn't know what to do because they're so overwhelmed and full. So we ended up staying on the floor at the headquarters off of Atlantic Boulevard. And it was the light bulb went off. Was like, man, this is how kids are being treated. Like when they're removed from homes, they got to sleep on a floor till they find a home, a hotel. I mean, it's a problem in Jacksonville.
Right.
So that's something I want to fight for. I want to decrease the number of child removal rates here in Duval County. And I mean, I don't know if DCF is the answer, if we have to bring in multiple resources to Jacksonville or we have to reevaluate the city contract. I don't know about that. But I know that our kids cannot continue to be removed from homes.
Yep, and that's, I can actually speak to that a little bit because in my day job, this is what we work to fight against. Right. So you spoke about the removal rate here in Duval. So to shed a little additional light on that, between Duval and Nassau County, there are close to 1,400 children that are in the child welfare system, just right here in our very own community. And so one of the protective measures to prevent kids from being removed, to prevent children from coming into the foster care system is to strengthen the family unit.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
And so there are many different variables that can cause a family to be at risk, right? Ron, I heard you mention one of them. It can be economic factors, right? Unfortunately, drug usage is a reality in today's day and time. It can be abuse. That can be one of the things as well that can lead to that. But you're already involved, Ron, with an organization that's helping to reduce those risk factors in the 32209 area code, Durkeeville specifically. I mentioned earlier about Jada Hunter and what she and her team are doing there at Center of Hope. The primary goal being to help strengthen the family unit, because whether you know it or not, listener, the 32209 zip code in Jacksonville has the highest removal rate in the city of children being removed from their homes, placed into the foster care system. So the organization that I work for by day, Family Support Services, recognized this a few years ago, and that's when the Center of Hope was launched, specifically in that zip code, to begin saying, okay, where are the gaps that these families are experiencing? And let's begin providing those services, because forget cost. We'll put cost on the shelf for a moment. It's much more beneficial to the child. It's less traumatic for the child if we can provide that family the services they need without removing the child from the home.
That's right.
The family is able to function much more efficiently as a unit if we're able to simply go in and help close the gaps that they currently have. And so, Ron, you're hitting the nail right on the head with what we're seeing here in the city of Jacksonville with your family strengthening initiative. If there was one thing that you would want to stake your claim on when it comes to family strengthening, how would you go about implementing that particular initiative?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think funding goes a long way. And I'm an advocate on, if we're spending the taxpayer dollars right now, we have about $77 million that's coming from the city budget going into an organization right now, Kids Hope Alliance. Yeah. And it's a lot of money. And what I've seen over the last 7 years, it's very hard to maintain these grants. And I think a lot of people are neglected in the community when we're doing the good work that people are doing. And there's just a lot of red tape. We're making it a little bit too hard for the community ground root organizations that are actually doing the work to receive the city dollar. Right. And so I want to fight for it. If there's people on the ground like Jada and like what's happening in the 09 community, why are we not fueling that consistently? Yeah. We should not be fighting for money, especially when the numbers are showing a decrease. Yeah. So that's one thing that if I could do it, I would re-navigate where the city dollars are going to actually make sure that the community programs that are on the ground doing the work consistently, day in, day out, are receiving the appropriate funds that they need to continue the work.
You're talking on something, Ron, that I know a little something about. I agree. There is a lot of red tape at the local level when it comes to accessing funding. All right, so I'm going to talk about it from two different aspects. So Center of Hope, prime example. Center of Hope was a recipient, and this is public knowledge, so I'm not sharing anything that a person couldn't do the research to find out themselves. So I shared briefly just some of the work that the Center of Hope does in the 32209 community to help strengthen families. So this past grant cycle, the city of Jacksonville, in addition to Kids Hope Alliance being one of those vehicles that the city uses to provide funds into the community, there's another vehicle that the city also has. It's called a public service grant, PSG. In the past, the Center of Hope had been a recipient of the public service grant to help fuel and fund many of the initiatives that they are providing for the 32209 zip code. This past grant cycle, which the grant launches October 1st of the previous year. So October 1st, 2024, Center of Hope was not awarded those funds this year for PSG, which created a huge gap in terms of services that they would be able to provide for that community. We're talking about $150,000 that was denied Center of Hope this past grant cycle. Now, Here's what's also happened, because you spoke about a lot of city red tape. Well, here's some of the red tape that's also going on. And this isn't necessarily public knowledge, but I have inner knowledge of it.
All right, give us the exclusive.
So this past grant cycle, where the awards were announced for the different organizations who would receive funding. The city of Jacksonville has a PSG council in place. This council, these are not council members, these are not city employees. Right. These are volunteers from throughout the business community, throughout the Jacksonville community who make up this board. They are the ones who rate the grant applications that are submitted to access these funds. Okay. So what has been happening, some of the organizations that were awarded funds this past fall are now electing to not accept the funds from the city because there is now a lot more red tape that's being implemented post-award.
Oh, okay.
Right? So case in point, on the front end when applying for the grant, hey, if you want to apply for this grant, you must meet this bullet point, meet that bullet point, and the other bullet point. Okay, cool, not a problem. Right. So we'll go ahead and apply because we meet these particular criteria that has been put in place to receive fundings for this grant. Yeah. All right, congratulations, you've been awarded the funds. Oh, by the way, now that you got those funds, what we're now about to implement is you also now have to do this, that, and the third if you want to access the funds. So organizations are saying, whoa, hold up.
So they didn't know some of these stipulations on the front end.
Those weren't stipulations that you had in place on the front end. You're doing a bait and switch now on the back end. And, oh, by the way, the city has not paid out PSG funds since October of 2024.
Yep.
So we're talking about...
Is that bad? I mean, it's that much red tape?
Yes.
Well, if I can even say this, please. I had a young lady, CEO of a company here in Jacksonville. She mentioned the same thing. She hasn't been paid in 8 months.
Yep.
How do you expect to run an organization and not receive payment in 8 months?
Yes.
And that's a huge problem.
So do you have any insight as to why these, quote, I guess, new stipulations have been put upon the organizations to get the funds? Like, what's the problem?
So what I've been told is the city says, well, these stipulations have always been in place. Previous administrations simply were not upholding
enforcing them.
Those stipulations. Okay. However, there are other conversations with individuals who has analyzed these city contracts and have said, no. These stipulations aren't even in the contract language. You're changing up the game now that the funds have been awarded. And you're trying to say that this has always been in place. Show us the statutes. Show us the documentation where these stipulations were in place, because these things that you're saying that you want now are not in our contracts. And so legally, how can you hold up our funds if we don't have a binding contract tying us to these stipulations that you claim have always been in place?
That's right.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess, and no one really wants to deal with it. Even if you look back at the past, mayoral seats, is we don't go to we don't hit this nail on the head. And who suffers? We suffer in the community, which then means the people suffer. So we're more concerned about building the next project rather than actually making the people's voices heard. Yeah. So it's a problem.
So, but I'm still trying to figure out, like, why though? I mean, is it political? Is it? What's the reason? Well, you got to think about it in this kind of manner. So I'll use a story again. We went into Kids Hope Alliance with a community meeting, I don't know, a year ago. Open to the public. We went into this meeting and I brought community voices. So a lot of times people show up and they want to bring their team or their executives. No. We're going to bring community voices and we're going to let the community speak. And so we sat in a big board meeting with high executives, council, and then when they gave the chance for the community to speak, our community stood up and said, you guys have not given us $1, but you continue to use 09 as your childhood poster child. And this mom got up and spoke, and they said, excuse me, you can leave the room.
Wow.
we've never been invited back.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we said we were going to get phone calls. I mean, because they heard truth. And I think sometimes, most of the times when you hear truth, that stings. But also in the reality of, like, when we're talking almost $77 million being passed through as taxpayer dollars, that's a lot of money that can be impacting our communities in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But when you have 50 executives making $150,000 to $300,000 a year,
Yeah.
we ain't worried about the community in these areas. We're worried about, sitting on our lawn chair at, different areas of the community and kind of putting that to the side.
Yeah. It sounds like sabotage to me. It's like deliberate sabotage for certain areas of town.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the funding piece is I think it's a huge sticking point right now, especially because of the DEI dismantling that's happening at a federal level.
Right.
And many organizations who were previously receiving funds that fueled such programs.
Right.
So now when you have situations where the local dollars now are even being challenging to access,
Right.
it really puts organizations in a tight spot. It
Well,
really truly
I
does.
asked, was it political?
Yeah.
So, did I not ask that question? Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's there's so much overlap that I see happening with the PSG dollars that I mentioned a moment ago. There's been no indication that that's tied to DEI dismantling that we're seeing at the federal level.
Yeah, right.
There's been nothing that really quantifies that. But
still, he was mentioning the young lady, the organization that hasn't been paid in 8 months.
Yeah.
8 months.
Yeah.
So what are they doing?
Yeah, and the interesting part is that's cost reimbursement. So, but
Correct.
the city already has the money.
Yeah, right.
So why does somebody have to wait 8 months to get paid?
Yep.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. Didn't know this was going on in the city of Jacksonville.
And so then the third area of focus, community revitalization. What does community revitalization look like for Ron Armstrong?
Yeah, so, these areas then have these little pillars that are attached to them. And so the last area of revitalizing communities, we've just seen what works. And going back to consistency in our community, 2017, the news put out that Cleveland Arms was the murder capital apartment complex of Jacksonville, Florida. Highest homicided rate, 32209 was the continuing murder zip code in the state of Florida. But when we came off the crime map, so when I walked into JSO, I think it was 2020 or 2021, and on this big board in the sheriff's office, it just has the areas of Jacksonville that are known for crime. So when we saw Cleveland Arms on the big screen, and then when I walked in there 2.5 years later and it wasn't on the screen, and then I remember sitting down with TK and I was like, why is it not on the screen? And then talking with Homicide, they're like, hey man, the work that's being done in the community, like, it shows. And so over the past 7 years, whether it's, we just made history in the 09 Cleveland Arms with having 33 people graduate with their high school diplomas in our community.
Nice.
It made headlines. People were like, how did you do it? And it's like, it's not really how you do it. It's just working with the people and giving them the voices that they deserve. So all that to be said, and then, starting the coffee company and employing directly from those communities, not going and employing from Ponte Vedra or Mayport or Bay Meadows, but being very strategic and saying, we're going to hire from our community because we want to see our community transformed. We just created this model that now can be replicated, but now it goes back to the city dollar. Like, we're not grant funded. We don't get no money from the city. Raising in the last 3 years, we've raised over almost $4 million just by people who believe in the mission, local businesses, and it's just shown like, man, the city can actually get behind this without attaching itself to some stipulation and red line taping.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have that model with transforming communities, and we believe it will work. And then the other part of that, underneath that was, right now, as a believer in faith, we have over 2,000 churches in Jacksonville. So every Sunday, there's about 500,000 people that walk through some door of a church. So I want to create this initiative called Love Your Block. If every church in Jacksonville took 5 blocks from their front doorstep, it's almost over 79% of Jacksonville would be served, here we go, by the local church.
Yeah.
So we don't need thousands and thousands of programs in the city of Jackson. We just need the local church to do their job and get outside of the Sunday walls and actually serve their community.
Yeah.
And listen, I get it. I've been on tons of international mission trips. I love my city. I love churches that I'm a part of, whether they're black, white, Hispanic, purple, yellow. I just think we've gotten too comfortable. And I want to encourage. I want to be the mayor that encourages the local church to do the job of being in the community and assessing and meeting the needs of the local people.
Well, I can tell you, man, just based on what you've shared so far on Front Page Jacksonville, you got a fight on your hands.
Yep.
You definitely have a fight on your hands because negating the fact that you don't have a political background and you're seeking to shake up the political status quo.
Yeah.
You're going to make some people angry, man.
It's already happened.
It's already happened.
Already happened, you know. But if the community wants to get behind you and support you, how can they learn more about yourself, but also reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can go to www.theronarmstrong.com to learn more about those initiatives. You can follow us on Facebook, Ron Armstrong, Instagram. And we've already done a couple of community events. We just got done this weekend in Jack's Beach. It was a phenomenal event. We do slow down barbecues, community events. And then we have a fundraiser coming up in about 30 days that we are going to try to raise about $300,000. And I'm the first one out of the gate. So we have about 7 more people that are going to be running, obviously, against our incumbent. And then we're excited to hit the road for 16 months, announced to City Hall coming up in June, and continue our initiatives throughout the city.
There you have it, Ron Armstrong. If you believe in the dream, go to theronarmstrong.com to read more information, but then also support if you choose that you would like to support as well. Hey, Ron, thanks so much for hanging out with us today on Front Page Jacksonville.
Thank you, guys.
Stick around, more is on the way.
Front Page Jacksonville resumes on Hot 106.5.
Shout out to the University of Florida Gators. Now, I'm not a Florida fan, but whenever a Florida team is representing on the national scale, I still got to show them love because it's Florida. The University of Florida will be going head-to-head against the University of Houston in the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship. Florida did it. So I'm rooting for Florida to win just because, again, it's a Florida team. I think their last NCAA championship was 2007 because if I recall that year, they went back-to-back. I believe they won in 2006, and then they turned around and won again in 2007. We'll see if they can bring another title home. I would love to have the crown of champion reside in the state of Florida. Thanks again to Ron Armstrong for hanging out as our guest this morning on Front Page Jacksonville. He will be officially announcing his candidacy for mayor in June. So that's just right around the corner. Will you support him? It's completely up to you. I do encourage you to always do your research on a candidate to decide who you would like to cast your vote for. And that's going to do it for us this week here on Front Page Jacksonville. Thanks for hanging out with me on another Sunday. I look forward to seeing you next Sunday, or at least look forward to you hearing me next Sunday, if it be the Lord's will. Hey, stick around. There's more great music coming your way right here on Hot 106.5, the soul of Duval. I'll catch you next time. Peace.
Front Page Jacksonville, Sundays from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. For show episodes, go to hot1065fm.com. We are Hot 106.5.